The bright lights of the Hollywood studio beamed down like artificial suns, casting a golden glow over the stage where 4 pairs of eyes twinkled with the excitement of new beginnings. This was the place where memories were tested and bonds were celebrated. From the heart of Hollywood, the announcer's voice boomed with a rhythmic energy, introducing the stars of the day. They were the newlyweds, each couple carrying the fresh scent of wedding flowers and the sparkling promise of a shared future. Couple number 1 had exchanged their sacred vows only 3.5 weeks ago. Rosalind and Kevin Tate sat close, their shoulders touching as if they were still tethered by the invisible silk of their wedding ceremony. Couple number 2, Christy and Jeff King, had tied the knot 2.5 months ago, possessing a gentle confidence in their shared gaze. Couple number 3, Carlina and Alan Smith, had walked down the aisle 2 months ago, while couple number 4, Kelly and Jeff Brown, had traded rings exactly 1 month ago. The audience erupted into applause as the legendary star of the Newlywed Game, Bob Eubanks, stepped onto the stage. He carried an air of seasoned charm, his smile as wide as the horizon. He thanked the crowd with genuine warmth and welcomed everyone to the show, expressing his sincere happiness that they could all join the celebration today. Bob turned to the couples, his eyes dancing with mischief. He asked if they were ready to play the game. With their enthusiastic nods, he explained the rules of the engagement. To start the show, he would ask the husbands a series of questions while the ladies were escorted to a soundproof area to ensure the integrity of the challenge. As the wives departed, Bob reminded the husbands that he would be asking 5-point questions. The goal was simple yet profound. The husbands had to predict exactly how their wives would answer. If the answers matched, they would earn 5 points. The couple with the most points at the end of the journey would win a fabulous second honeymoon. The first question was a delicate one, touching upon the intimate rhythms of their new lives together. Bob asked the gentlemen to consider their wives' sex drive lately. Would the ladies say their husbands wished they would turn it on, turn it down, turn it around, or turn it off? Jeff Brown was the first to answer, his voice filled with the confidence of a man still in the peak of his honeymoon phase. He chose turn it on without a second of hesitation. He explained that they had been married for only 1 month and everything was still cooking. He even joked that the heat was not going to slow down anytime soon. Alan was next. He agreed with the sentiment of turning it on. He mentioned that while they had been busy, he felt they needed to make sure they reached a frequency of 4 times a week as opposed to just 2 times. Bob chuckled, noting that it was perhaps a little more information than necessary, but he appreciated the honesty. Jeff King followed suit, choosing turn it on as well. He explained that since both of them had been working full-time lately, the pace had not been quite what they had expected. Finally, Kevin spoke up with a hearty laugh, confirming he also wanted it turned on. He admitted he constantly wanted it all the time, prompting Bob to call him a healthy, red-blooded American fellow. The game moved forward to a more humorous observation of daily life. Bob asked the husbands what their wives would say is their favorite thing to whine about these days. He invited them to perform an impression of that whining. Alan began by mimicking his wife's desire for employment, saying she often whined about being tired of not working and needing a job. Jeff King offered a different perspective, stating that his wife whined about the job she actually had. He described her coming home and complaining that things were going wrong or that people were not doing their tasks properly. Kevin added to the theme, mentioning that his wife whined about the job she had just left. Lastly, Jeff Brown shifted the focus to material desires, claiming his wife's current grievance was her need for a new car. For the third question of the first round, Bob proposed a hypothetical and humorous scenario. He asked the husbands to complete a sentence about a friend living a double life. The sentence was that it would not surprise them one bit if they found out a certain friend was living a double life as a stripper. He asked for first names only. Jeff King suggested a friend named Devanna, noting she had been hanging out in Hollywood lately and certainly had the physical equipment for such a profession. Kevin chose a friend named Laurie, describing her as tall, sexy, and capable of such a career. Jeff Brown picked Michelle, but for the opposite reason. He felt she was so far removed from that lifestyle that it would be the ultimate surprise. Alan finished the round by naming Nicole, who apparently had a penchant for wearing risque clothing and showing off her legs. After a brief pause for messages, The wives returned to the stage, their faces lit with curiosity. Bob welcomed them back and began the process of comparing their answers to their husbands' predictions. The first question regarding the sex drive brought a wave of agreement. Rosalind, Christy, and Carlina all correctly guessed that their husbands wanted them to turn it on, earning their couples 5 points each. When it came to Carlina, Bob teased her about the frequency of 2 to 4 times a week that Alan had mentioned. Kelly, however, went against the grain and suggested her husband would want her to turn it down. Since Jeff had predicted turn it on, they did not receive the points, illustrating the beautiful unpredictability of new marriages. When the topic shifted to whining, the results were a mix of hilarity and surprise. Christy correctly identified work as her main topic of complaint. Carlina, however, took the audience by surprise. Instead of mentioning a job, she looked at Alan and whined about his preference for wearing drawers with holes in them. The audience roared with laughter as Alan, embarrassed, tried to explain that they were merely his casual weekend attire. Bob joked that perhaps he needed the air conditioning provided by the holes due to the heat in Southern California. Kelly mentioned driving too slow, while her husband had predicted a car. Rosalind whined about her body after having a baby, though her husband had predicted she would talk about her former job. Despite the misses, the atmosphere remained light and filled with love. The final question of the round regarding the secret life of a stripper brought more matches. Carlana correctly guessed Nicole, and Rosalind correctly guessed Larry. Kelly suggested a friend named Shane, while her husband had guessed Michelle. The room was filled with the sound of friends being playfully teased. As the show reached its second half, the stakes were raised to 10 points per question. The husbands were sequestered, and the wives were asked to predict their behaviors. Bob asked how their husbands got dressed in the morning. Was it sock, sock, shoe, shoe, or sock, shoe, sock, shoe? All 4 ladies, Carlana, Christy, Rosalind, and Kelly, were unanimous. They all declared their husbands were creatures of habit who followed the sock, sock, shoe, shoe routine. It was a testament to the quiet observations made in the early days of marriage. The next question delved into the realm of adventurous memories. Bob asked the wives to complete a sentence about a time they decided to go all the way, meaning to engage in intimacy, in a place that seemed like a good idea but turned out to be a disaster. Rosalind hesitantly revealed that they had once tried in her niece's bedroom at her mother's house. Kelly recounted a story of being on a beach in Tahiti where passers-by interrupted the moment. Carlana mentioned a roommate's couch, and Christy spoke of a beach near a nuclear power plant where the public setting proved problematic. To conclude the wives segment, Bob asked a 25-point bonus question about the contents of their kitchens. He wanted to know if there were more jars, cans, bags, or boxes of food. Kelly chose jars, Carlana chose boxes, and both Christy and Rosalind chose cans. The husbands returned for the final reveal. The tension was palpable but joyous. On the question of dressing habits, every single husband confirmed the sock, sock, shoe, shoe method, awarding points across the board. The studio felt like a chorus of agreement. When the discussion turned to the disastrous locations of their romantic encounters, the matches continued to pour in. Jeff Brown confirmed the beach story. Kevin gave a vivid and humorous account of the encounter at his mother-in-law's house, explaining how they tried to be discreet while her mother was in another room. The audience laughed as Kevin joked that the mother would not be mad as long as she did not know. Jeff King confirmed the nuclear power plant story, and Alan matched the roommate's sofa answer. Finally, it was time for the deciding bonus question about the kitchen inventory. The points were tallied, and the excitement reached its peak. Jeff Brown guessed cans, but his wife had said jars. Kevin guessed cans, and since Rosalind had also said cans, they earned the 25 points, catapulting them into the lead. Jeff King guessed boxes while his wife said cans, and Alan guessed cans while his wife said boxes. The calculation was complete. With a final score that topped the leaderboard, Kevin and Rosalind Tate were declared the grand prize winners. They had won a fabulous second honeymoon, a 7-day Caribbean cruise where they would experience Italian-style luxury while visiting islands like St. Thomas and Grand Cayman. Bob Eubanks stood between the happy couple, his voice full of warmth as he congratulated the Tates and thanked all the participants. He bid the audience a fond farewell, leaving the stage filled with the echoes of laughter and the undeniable evidence that even in the smallest details of life, love always finds a way to win.